This movie is about prefabs. Unity offers us a feature called prefabs to allow us to do a couple things. Number one, we can create complicated game objects and then duplicate them many times in a scene. Number two, once we have all those complicated game objects in a scene, we can modify their properties easily all at once instead of one at a time. There are two ways to create a prefab. Way number one is to go to the Assets area and click on Prefab after clicking Create. So I'll call this Test Prefab. Again, the way I did that was I click Create, Prefab. Then I go up to the game object, I hit Create Empty. I create a couple of 2 3D game objects in my scene. Let me position those a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and put the sphere on top of the cube, and I'm going to nest both of those underneath the game object. Then I drag the game object onto the prefab asset in the Assets area. So that's the first way to do it. I'm going to go ahead and delete the original game objects. That does not make the prefab disappear, it's still there. The second way to create a prefab is to get a couple of 3D game objects. Let's try the sphere, and we'll go with the cylinder. And we'll take the sphere, take the sphere, and we'll move it on top of the cylinder. So we have something that looks like a grain silo. We'll create an empty game object. Then we'll nest the sphere and cylinder under the empty game object. And then we'll just drag the empty game object into the Assets area. There you go. That's how you get another prefab. And then we delete the original in the hierarchy. Now let's talk about two ways to instantiate prefabs. And instantiate means just to create them. You can drag them into the hierarchy, or you can drag them onto the scene. If you drag them into the hierarchy, then their position will be the position of the original prefab that you made. If you drag it into the scene, then it will obviously just take the position where you grabbed it. Alright, those are the two ways to create prefabs in a scene. There are two ways to modify prefabs. One way is to go to the Assets area and hit the arrow next to the prefab to expose its parts. Select one of the parts, and then you can modify one of its properties. And let me do that again so you can kind of see it. And you notice when I modified that property, it changed for all the prefabs. If I had 100 prefabs out there, it would change for all of them. I'm going to reset it to 1. Another way to change a prefab is to select it in the hierarchy and to choose one of its components and then modify it. However, it won't change all the other prefabs until I go over to the inspector and hit Apply. When I do that, then all the other prefabs change as well. Alright, let's talk a little more about prefabs. One thing you can do with prefabs is create them in a script. So I wrote a little script here. I have a public variable of type GameObject. I call it the prefab. And then in the update method, I have a conditional statement that if somebody presses the A key, I will instantiate a prefab. We use the word instantiate. That's a method. That's how we get prefabs to be created in code. The first parameter is the name of the prefab. The second parameter is a 3D vector that just tells me where I want to place the prefab once I create it. And the third parameter is something called a quaternion. And this basically holds all the rotation information about the object in it. Really, all you need to do there is put transform.rotation for now. If you become an advanced user and you know a lot of math, then you can use quaternions. We'll save this, we'll build it. we're going to go over to our Unity interface, and you'll notice I already drug the script onto the main camera, and over here you can see the script appears, and you can see a place for a public variable. So I'm going to grab one of the prefabs, either from the hierarchy or the assets area, and put it in that placeholder. Alright, so now I have a reference to it in the code. Alright, so let's do this. So let's go to the game view. Let's play our game. And we're going to hit the A key. And when I hit the A key, you'll notice that a prefab appeared. Now if I hit the A key again, you'll notice another one appears in the hierarchy, but it doesn't seem like another one appeared in the scene view or the game view. That's because they're all being placed at 0, 0, 0. Well, that's it for prefabs. Make sure you read the book. There's a lot of great information in there.